Hey everyone, welcome back to Marsh Minutes. I'm here with Paul Lowey, the creative director of Gloo Studios in Vancouver. They've worked on music videos, film, TV shows. They specialize in what was it, animation,
Motion graphics,
motion
visual
graphics. There
effects.
you go, motion graphics, visual effects. And then was there another one? Because we kind of went over this already
Oh, we just
before.
kind of do it all. If somebody needs something presented digitally, we can kind of put it together.
And I don't want to give it away, but I'm going to call you out too. You guys are expats from Regina, um, and you moved out to BC. Can you
Yeah.
tell me like how long ago was that, and what kind of spurred that on?
It's been a while since I left Regina specifically, but I've been in Vancouver here for about 12 years now, just about as long as Glue Studios has been around. It's one of those things that we started once getting out here and sort of establishing ourselves in the place. So Glue's been kicking here in the Lower Mainland, located in Burnaby, for about 11 years.
Well, I've known you guys for the better part of like maybe almost 25 years.
It's
We're
got to
going
be,
way
yeah,
back. Yeah, so
way
you
back.
and you guys have been making films since you were in high school.
High
So is
school.
that
Those
yeah?
kids with the video cameras, right? Yeah. So Glue is myself and my business partner Mike Ritchie, and we were the two guys in high school with the video camera that were constantly, anybody else would be out there, having whatever fun kids would do on the weekends. Our fun was we'd go out and we'd gather all of our friends, we'd get the camera and come up with a movie idea, and we'd make it, then go back and like watch it all, to shoot, edit, finish a film between 10 p.m. at night and 4 in the morning, and get it all done and then watch it before we all finally collapsed with exhaustion and go to sleep.
So you like Glue Studios has been around for longer than that, but that's one thing where you guys just kind of put a name to it at some point.
Yeah, exactly, because we've gone through a lot of iterations, and I don't think it was that, you know, being a kid in high school, I certainly wasn't thinking that far ahead in my future. And even going into like once I got an idea about what I wanted to do with my life, and that the fact was, the kid that's holding a video camera in high school actually wants to hold a video camera and make money doing it one day. That
Hmm.
didn't dawn on me until much later in life. But a lot of that stuff, I never thought about starting a business itself until, really it was around 2008 when the recession had hit, and there was just no work for a person like me in the film industry. And I had to start drumming up my own work. And that's kind of what ended up starting off with the Glue Studios. That and, a number of other pieces that tied into it too. But from my personal perspective, that's where it kind of began at.
Well, I know you guys have been out there, and I really hadn't kept in touch with you and Mike. But the first thing that I saw that you guys had worked on was the Tiger Woods in the game video, and
That's
I
right.
brought it up to watch it again, and I remember looking at that. And I think I watched that thing like 10 times over, just how funny it was, and showing it to everyone. And then I'm like, oh, I know these guys who did that, and it looks so good.
It's amazing because, it's really ridiculous, the whole thing, because it was a contest that was awarding $50,000 for creating a viral video. And this is right on the cusp of when this concept of viral videos was just becoming a thing. That
Hmm.
it was like there was no word for viral videos probably a year prior to that. And now it became this thing that companies were trying to like harness and activate for themselves. And EA being one of them was like, we'll get people to grassroots and they'll do a competition and we'll pay them a big chunk of money. So we went and did this thing. And I don't know the numbers, but I mean, there was probably, I don't know, 20 submissions into it. It was not a big, huge, crazy event. I think that we'd won on this event with maybe at the time, I don't know, 4,000 or 5,000 views on the video on YouTube. And that was enough for us to win this. But the amazing thing is that this is right, months into us starting this company. None of us have any money. We're
Hmm.
trying to get this going. And all of a sudden we land 50,000 freaking dollars. It was like everything we needed to actually begin to start to buy infrastructure, to put the pieces together and start doing this. That is, and the comedy of it and our approach and everything, it just fits so well for who we are and everything
And it
too.
also showed off your acumen too, right? Like, you could say you're a film studio, but if you don't have anything to showcase and like going like, yeah, this went viral with a few thousand views and people are like, oh my God, that's amazing.
Well, the nice thing was to say that it just went viral and that we won a viral video competition. It was great. We didn't have to say how many views it actually
Well,
got.
and that's fair. Like, and I don't know, cause,
Well, it was right around the same time that there was a lot of Tiger Woods negative stuff in the media.
that was
And
before or
so
after that or around there.
right around the same
Ooh,
time.
okay.
So the whole campaign kind of just got like, ooh, let's not make a big focus on this anymore. But then they still needed to award and live to the standards
Well,
of
and you
what
still
they were
got the
doing.
money for it,
We
right? Like
still got the money.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I don't think I don't even know if I saw that on YouTube. I think I might have seen it on College Humor or on break.com or whatever. Dig, it was kind of shared wherever,
All
right?
those sites back in the day.
Yeah.
And I know that we did get it pushed around in there because we had a lot of avenues with friends and people who'd been working with over different jobs even before Glue that allowed us, gave us sort of an advantage in communicating with people who are already doing things that were viral or had big audiences that were available there online. I mean, yeah, this is like the beginnings of video on the internet, really.
Well, and I don't want to focus on the Tiger Woods thing because you guys have so much else I want to talk about. But so how did you kind of find out that that was going on, and then what was the whole process in saying, okay, this is what we're going to do, this is what we have to focus on, this is the message that we want to show too.
Oh, right, right. I mean, specifically about that video at the beginning, I mean, that just came up because one of us in our group had sort of come across it and saw, oh, this is neat. Maybe we could come up with an idea. So that's what we did. We just came up with an idea and just threw it into the pot and gave it a try. It was wonderful. I mean, we knew that we needed to inject it with the flavor that we would bring to it. Needed to be funny and it needed to use visual effects in some way. Had to have that creative edge. So you're right. I don't want to talk on and on and on about a video that's now 11 years old and just a piece of that history. But it was really those were the pieces that led up to us. Yeah, creating it, designing it, and then.
Well, I didn't know that was your first success. That's awesome. That's amazing. That just kind of the stars aligned and.
Well, it's funny, yeah, because those early days in Glue, I mean, we were doing other projects that were, quite successful and getting a lot more views in, the tens or hundreds of thousands even. But it wasn't a Glue Studios unique project. It would be a part where we were collaborating on it. We were part of a bigger group that was all behind it and part of that team. Like College Humor, of course, as an example, who we've enjoyed a long history of working with and through their entire heyday of the establishment and their transition through their own platform to emergence onto YouTube. And the acceleration of real budgets and money being injected into online video, which, going back in time that far, again, we're talking about people making videos for online and it's, you want to spend a few $100s because it's just for online. But, we were part of this process that was shifting all of that where, this content that we were wanting to create for the online market should be as good as or better than what people are expecting and getting from television.
Did you just want to put things on a screen, or did you intend on doing movies or film, or did you just want to make stuff?
I just like making stuff. I mean, I'll have to talk about myself personally, of course. You'd have to talk to Mike or others to just really get more.
We'll get him on next time.
They were thinking, yeah, maybe he'd be great to talk to, actually. But I mean, for myself, for me, I started without, like I said, anticipation of really, being a business owner or running my own ship in those ways. Like I was quite happy being a key grip on a set or being a locations manager or at best maybe an assistant director, things like that. It was fun. And then it was before Vancouver, it was a time when I was in Calgary working on some other things. I got shifted over from doing some television work, some documentary television, where I was writing and directing it, to now just being like, Paul, we need you to do something else for a bit because we don't have another show for you to go on. Go do this corporate video. And I was like, oh, okay. Never done that before. I went and did a corporate video and I fell in love, honestly. Like this idea of going out there and dropping all of, I don't know, the whole sphere of everything that influences making a TV show or a movie. There's the egos that are at play. There's the establishment, the preconception everybody has about how things are supposed to go. And it was like, you're just kind of a piece in this machine. That wasn't so much fun. And then also I went and did corporate. And then it was just, you were like the coolest person in the room doing corporate. Like you walk into a room of people who never do anything video wise, who never, all of a sudden now you're there and it's like, you must have the funnest job in the world. And it's like, well, actually I do. Start to think about it and I tell them, and you get this whole other, I don't know, energy that comes out of it by working with people who aren't attached or connected with the film industry in that way, the layman's of it, right? Like that you get to go over there and now share what you're doing. And that became a really big passion for me. So it was one of those areas I knew I wanted to get into a lot more, was on, working with companies, working with people outside the film industry, and then bringing that, that creativity to their benefit in a way.
Talking about ego really is the crux of that too.
It
I know
totally
that when
is.
I'm working with direct companies versus like when I'm working with, and I don't work with a lot of film studios. I talked to you about this before, but you know, there's something to be said about someone hiring you to be an expert in something and then actually treating you as an expert rather than
Right.
going back and forth on stuff. And then it just works so much better. You know, like you can have a 200% increase on efficiency
Mhm.
just for that situation.
And that's wonderful for my own ego then,
Yeah.
because I get to show up now and they're like, oh, well, Paul is hired to be the creative director here. So his idea is perfect. Good job, Paul. And I'm like, yes, that's right. I feel wonderful now.
Well, and so creative director is your current title at
Yeah,
Glue.
that's right.
What does that mean? Because that is a title that I see a lot of people have, and they have very different roles.
Everybody who calls himself a creative director is a entirely different beast, I find. I mean, it's best to there's no easy way to summarize the type of work or what my job position is. I mean, some things, of course, I am the president of Glue Studios too, meaning that
Mhm.
am running all of the back end of what's going on and, the ins and outs of
But
everything
that's not what you're
financial, all of these.
passionate about.
That's not what I'm passionate about. That just needs to
Exactly.
be done.
Yeah.
The creative director side comes to the fact that, yeah, I love putting together and piecing together, key messaging, finding the stuff that's going to sell to the audience, making the right voice for that audience, putting those pieces together, and then of course bringing together a team of people, talented people that can do that and execute on it. So, I mean, I like to be more on the visionary side, coming up with the concept, the big scope, trying to pitch those and getting people on side with it. And I think that that's a big part of what I do and who I am as a creative director, is just coming up with the vision and then leading it forward.
When people come to you guys to do work, whether it's on the corporate side or maybe on more the creative side, are you the key contact that they kind of go and work with then?
It depends again on the project, because we do split a lot, obviously based on where our relationships lie and what our expertise is. But from the jobs that I do, yeah, I'm basically brought on for a lot of times just coming up with the concept. Here it is, Paul. We need to make sure that we're conveying this message. And then I'm figuring out how we're going to do that and make it actually impact and see a return for them on what they're going to spend to get it done.
So how many people do you have working at the studio right now?
Oh, like none.
None? No.
No, everything's virtual nowadays. We still have a nice big studio, which is great. And
Oh,
maybe
sorry.
one
I
day.
meant for the company.
Oh, at this moment, right now, just
Yeah.
four of us.
Okay. And so that means that you do have to like allocate and kind of work with a lot of people who, yeah. So there's a greater team that's not just under the umbrella.
There is. If I looked at everything that was going on, say in the month of, well, not to date where we are right now, but let's just say last month,
Mhm.
the number of different people who were essentially working with me on pretty close to a full-time level for what we were doing is probably about eight or nine people.
Mhm. No, then
Yeah.
that's really
And
cool.
that's
Yeah.
just because most people, of course, are in a freelance model. And it's something that we've encouraged too, especially going into COVID and coming to where we are now, where people are working from home. We're working in a creative industry. It's like this was the time to, go set up your own thing, get yourself established, start pulling in your own work outside of what we're doing here. Let's just like open this up. And then, again, for me and the type of role that I play, where I need to surround myself with other talented people, artists
Mhm.
that have their own unique way, their own vision, their own what they'll bring to the table. It's nice to be able to not to speak down on anybody that I work with, but not to just be limited to the handful of people who are here that I work with every day at Glue, but I need somebody with a very specific, distinct look or style. I'm not limit. I can go out and I can find those
You've
people.
been tapped into the community out in Vancouver for 12 years already, right? There's
Yeah, but
no
it's even beyond the
shortage of
community of
that. Oh, I
Vancouver,
guess so.
because
Yeah.
I'm working with people all around the world.
Yeah.
There's an enormous amount of projects that I work with continuously with one of my favorite animators out of Australia, and met him because of Vancouver and because he used to work at Glue Studios for years and years. But an Australian guy is back there. He does fantastic work, and I'll just keep continuing to work with him. We don't have to be in the same room. We don't have to be in the same country or time zone.
I'm curious about the logistics, though, since you are still the logistics guy and the creative side of things. With COVID, how much have you guys had to alter your live filming when it comes to that? Is it a huge pain in the ass as much as
Oh,
I think it is?
yeah, our live filming, we just stopped live filming for about a year. it just kind of ended. There was just none of it. But I mean, there wasn't much of anything, honestly, for a year, right?
Mhm.
And it's all, I mean, we're basically kind of back to capacity and full workload again as a
That's good.
company,
Yeah.
for where we are, based on where everything has gone. But yeah, the logistics of filming live was, complicated once we got back into it, trying to figure out what the right measures were, how to do it safely, how to make sure that we're, not just trying to tick the boxes, but trying to be a little bit more proactive about the decisions we're making and how we're doing things. Because even at those times, say as early as, April, May, June of 2021, when we might have been out there for the first time finally with a camera or a green screen setting up, was, there weren't good hard set rules about how to do this yet. And we're going into companies and buildings and offices where the staff of those buildings haven't even been back in yet. We're just kind of like going in there for the first time with a client who hasn't been there also in a year, because we need to go in there to film in the boardroom.
I don't remember that being there.
Yeah, it's kind of like that. It's like they're walking. It's like, oh, I left my lunch in my drawer. Shoot,
Oh,
it's,
yeah.
but we had to sort of start coming up with what we thought too were the best practices and the safe things to do. But I think that the film industry on a whole has done a really, really good job, and especially speaking on behalf of what's going on in BC, doing a really good job of running a tight ship with COVID safety protocols and doing it right and smart. So there's been a lot of good guidance to follow along with it as it's transitioned past that and to the point we're at now, which is it's just normal, right? You go out and shoot. We've got shoots tomorrow, the day after, and the day after. Basically, the rest of this week we've got shoots going on in a variety of different capacities. That we've got our checklists, we've got our safety boxes and kits, we've got our things that we do to go and do it right, and it's just a part of the process now.
It probably feels
honestly,
really good
it's a better part of the process too. It's like an improvement, right? It's a way that things should have been done. Why aren't we sanitizing audio equipment in between putting it on and off people? Maybe the little tricks like that could have probably been implemented and done in the past, and and just given us one extra level of just, I don't know.
And it's going to carry forward with that too, right?
Certainly will.
It's got to be good to like get out, kind of shake your wings off and go and actually film stuff in the wild, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I haven't been on an airplane. Well, I hadn't been on an airplane for ages, and finally getting on that first airplane after 14, 15 months or whatever it was. It was just a local flight, just on a little puddle jumper up north in BC. It's just like totally different process and everything of just getting your mind wrapped around that. And I like it.
But then you think, things are coming back to normal, so it starts to put your mind at ease for like what the future is going to hold, right?
Oh yeah, exactly.
How many times did you guys have to hop on a plane to do filming somewhere else? Like we talked about College Humor, right? Like were they always based out of California, or were they based out of New York as well?
New York originally.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Right.
So it was New York for the better part of our entire relationship with them too, right? The early establishment of that company and our long term with them. And then it was quite a few years ago that they did that transition. I can't say exactly when, I don't remember offhand, but a switch out to California. The nice thing was I travel a lot for work because there's usually a need to be out there to be an on-site creative director or filming or those types of things. But the work that we did specifically with College Humor for so many years was entirely focused around visual effects. So again, we don't have to be in the same room as them.
That's fair, yeah.
And especially for an internet company, like a digital company, these two companies, College Humor and Gloo Studios, it was so easy for us to meld basically, and even with them in a 3-hour difference time zone, it didn't matter. Like we could just continue to communicate and work with the put together different processes that allowed us to work like we were in the same room but without being in it.
So how did that relationship start with College Humor then?
Oh, that was Mike. Mike started that whole thing through a lot of his connections that he'd established in previous jobs and work overseas. And, as, young people who've been working and building great things and working for free on projects and helping friends with theirs and doing this back, everybody's career grows and people grow in different directions. And some of those people that we worked with and that Mike was working with grew into directions where they were at all sorts of different College Humor is one example, but we enjoy relationships with, again, friends for 20 plus years from different lifetimes ago that we now are continuing to work with in just different capacities, just because of our lives moving in all those directions that take us there. College Humor is a perfect example of that. Like some of our, not just of like the establishment of our relationship with them at the time, but then as, it's College Humor. Everybody kind of eventually outgrows it. And all of our, our client there, our friends, the people that we were working with there, our coworkers, they were all growing out of that organization the same time we were growing out of it, and they've moved on. Now we're doing the continuous work with them, and it just continues to evolve.
So you're no longer working with College Humor, but you're working with people outside who left. Gotcha. Yeah,
that's right.
And yeah, I think those relationships are going to last, your whole life. And it's so crazy. I was talking to someone about just the proliferation of the internet and how when I got online, I met a dude who was also into metal from California. Well, a kid too. And like we were just talking, and I'm like, I have a friend in California. Like I never thought that would be a thing that could happen. And now we're extending that to work, right?
Yeah. That's right. And you see those relationships that just grow and become now something that, they've got a job to do and they know the job that you do. And now how can we actually work together? Because I trust you, Shay.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to work with me and help me on my thing. I don't want to go find some other guy to do the job.
You're not leaving. Yeah, you're not leaving all that stuff behind when you leave Regina or when you're not in LA or.
That's right.
And that was what it used to be before. Is used to have to just be in those mecca centers where you'd pay out the ass for every bit of living expenses that's there.
Well, I mean, here I am in Vancouver doing it.
Yeah, well, and that's its own thing, right? Has it been a steady increase since you came? Because I don't think the bubble really happens right when you left. What did it or?
No, it's been. You're talking about like housing market and
housing market, and yeah, just everything out there.
It's constantly just getting. I can't even talk on it. It's out of control.
Well, you have my sympathies on that. But so did you end up working on like what were some of the big shows that were out there? Like I remember Battlestar Galactica was one of the first.
That's
large
before
TV
us
shows.
Out here.
Okay.
I think, because I remember watching Battlestar Galactica. I think back in Regina, maybe. Well, I mean, a lot of the shows that we work on now. I mean, for instance, we definitely go through our turn of Netflix movies. There's a lot of Netflix work that happens here in Vancouver, and
that's
so
awesome.
as a VFX provider, we've pretty much got a almost regular stream of those that come through.
Can you name drop any of them? Your favorite projects?
Well, I mean, one that is just out probably now or maybe within the next week. It should be on Netflix. Is a film called Hypnotic.
Oh, okay.
Which you can check out for sure. That's VFX by Gloo Studios on it. So all the fun stuff in there is us. And then we've got one that we're actually just starting on this week, which I'll just leave any names and stuff like that out for now.
Sure,
but
no
we've
problem.
got another one that's carrying on now that'll take us through Christmas, and then we'll see what pops up after that for the new year. But
So
that's just one side with the films, because we do a lot of work with brands and back to the whole advertising and marketing.
When you're talking even corporate too, right? Like
that's right.
You enjoying working with them just for almost like the ease of access is something that you want to continue on with too.
Exactly. Yeah.
No, that's awesome. Has there been any like stellar projects that you're really especially proud of? I'm sure you're proud of all your stuff, but anything that you want to talk about in the last 12 years that you've been there?
Oh my goodness. It's like saying, who's your favorite kid?
Who's your favorite kid?
Actually, that is easy. It's my oldest because I've known her the longest. Yeah, man. No, I can't. The easiest way to find the stuff that I'm proudest of is to watch our demo reel, because we put in the demo reel, not because we're trying to show off some of our greatest work. We're putting in the stuff that we're the proudest of, the stuff that we really feel is a good representation of, the type of work that we do. Because, for instance, we'll get calls from people. It's like, oh yeah, we got a monster movie and we need a crazy alien creature that's going to climb. It's like, have you not watched our stuff? We don't do creatures. Like, don't bring us those things. And so we put the things in there, and we want, like, there's an area of stuff that we want to work on and do. And so we make sure that we highlight and showcase those things. And also, I mean, a little bit towards this level is that Mike and I also are big believers in, taking on the jobs that you want to take on because you want to do them.
Yeah.
More than anything. And so, again, it's like, to that point, it's like, which is my favorite project? All of them, because we picked them in a way. They're projects that we would have handpicked because it's like, this is the one that we want to do.
I always say, like, the true measure of success with any kind of business venture that you're doing is when you get to the point where you have the ability to say no.
Yeah, right.
Instead of trying to like just, I need money. I just gotta keep like kind of scrounging stuff together. So it's cool that.
But it's a double-edged sword, because saying no is terrible, and it's at the same time.
Except when you talk about, like, you don't do creatures, right? You don't do monster stuff. I'm sure you have a pocket full of people that you can contact and bring on with that.
But that's definitely true. But the moment that you say no to somebody because it's like, well, no, I don't do creature effects, and then all of a sudden we can't talk to Gloo. They don't want to do VFX with us. It's like, well, it's not that, right? And then you risk that, because also that next company that they go work with, because they do need a company that does creature effects. That
Mhm.
creature effects company might be, oh yeah, we also do all that other stuff Glue Studios does.
That's fair.
So you lose that, you lose your in with that
It's
client.
it's tough to specialize in something when people don't exactly understand what you're doing or what goes into it.
Right.
Like when you talk about your demo reel, I wonder how much of that stuff a lot of people are like, oh well, that doesn't look that fancy, and you're like, that is so. You have no idea how much work went into that.
That's a perfect example. There's so many things that, if I could bring up a clip and show you a shot,
Mhm.
and you'd be like, I don't know what you did. And that's the point. As VFX artists in the industry, one of the big jobs is basically being ninjas. Nobody
Mhm.
should notice that you were there. Nobody should be like, look at the VFX.
Yeah.
Like, it should be seamless. It should be, how did they get a real alien ship? Those types of things need to, they need to be so well hidden that it's tough to show it off.
I'm not sure if you have seen this, but we started watching every Saturday the Corridor Digital VFX Artists React.
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I've
So
watched some of it, and some of the guys here watch it too. Yeah.
yeah, and it's like that's very interesting because that's not something that I like know intimately. Like I know a couple of film things just from being like an average consumer, right? But
Yeah.
nowhere near as much as that's on there. And I've worked with After Effects. That's the closest thing I've done in terms
Sure.
of any kind of like special effects, and it's all these different things and all these tricks too. Like
Hmm.
the amount of innovation you've probably seen since you had that camera that was recording VCR
Oh
tapes
yeah.
has
Well,
to be.
since editing by attaching two VCRs to each other and timing, like, yeah, there's watching how innovation has changed has been enormous and so inspiring. One of the things that I like really actually encourages me is when I look at what these tools are and how accessible they are for people nowadays, and that they're in high schools and even elementary schools, that kids are learning After Effects in grade
Mhm.
9. That
Yeah.
it's I wish I had those opportunities when I was a kid. I'm so encouraged about what this generation that's coming through now with these platforms at their fingertips and computers with processing power available to just do amazing things.
Well,
What
the
we're going to
availability of
see come forward,
software,
what
right?
we're going to see come forward from these people, because software is one part of it.
Yeah,
Knowing the
yeah.
technical is part of it, but we work in the film industry. It requires artistry. You
Mhm.
need creative artists, and now the accessibility for people who have an artistic inclination, an idea about something that they want to do, to be able to now actually run it forward because they now have the tools and the capacity to do it with those tools. And it's really encouraging. I mean, we see really, really cool stuff all the time on YouTube. We share it. Or on any of the platforms. We see cool things that people are just doing, general users out there. Now, watching some of these, general users who don't have enough experience as a 17-year-old content maker online to go and get a Hollywood movie. Wait till that 17-year-old who's been making killer content online for the past 3 years has an opportunity to actually start rolling out, the next $200 million Marvel blockbuster or whatever. Like, this is really, I think, a fun and encouraging time to be looking at what's going to happen coming forward
Not
with the
just the
melding of that.
not just the $200 million Marvel movies though, but like how many short films or like low budget films are people making that are just like they put so much more love into it than you can ever get from just throwing budget at something.
Right.
And that might lead to proliferation where they'll go into other larger projects and stuff. But I love the internet for that, where someone can make something with their friends and share that. Like, do you still have any of your old DVDs of the films you did? Like, I was specifically, I remember being floored when you guys did that film about Dungeons and Dragons.
Yes.
And I remember being just
That was
floored
called
with
Conform or Die. What a
Conform or Die.
fantastically amazing movie that we somehow managed to produce.
When you had the
And,
goblin in the back seat, I'm like, how do you get the goblin in real life? And like add and I'm just like, I was like, oh, you could do that? That's so cool. Because all I had ever done was like take things, and as you were talking about, where you have the two VCRs filming into one thing and then you
that's
stop
right.
and
Yeah.
record. And
Hmm.
so
And a video camera set up towards, I think I had like a PC. It was like a Pentium something 686, and we had
oh
some software
man.
that allowed us to do like a title scroll, but no way to export it. So it was like, get the video camera, shooting the screen, get the title scroll going, and then finding those ways of where you're like trying to break VCRs almost to get them to like give you, different layers, different cut points, finding it. Yeah, it was just like this big mess. But I mean, yeah, like those old effects and things like that we try to implement into there. I mean, that was just like, trying anything that we could possibly do, which I think a lot of people in the film industry have been doing anyways for years and years. That's how we've invented things like, doing things with miniatures and, creating perspective, tricky perspective things. I forget what the word for that is, but, like all the stuff that they do in Lord of the Rings or whatever, camera perspective, all these different tricks that we've just been able to sort of visually find. And each generation that comes along, of course, gets more tools and more, other ideas. And then just how can you take your creativity, fit that into there and execute on something.
As long as they respect the classics and respect what you're talking about with these old tricks, because you can't just have the answer be just more software or more plugins or whatever, right? You have to at least be able to go, okay, well, how can we mirror like some practicality into these visual effects?
That's right. Yeah. No, and you need to. Just even still, there's a level or a measure, I suppose, in the work, and we want this here at Glue, is to be efficient. There might be a way to do a job, and it's going to end up being, it'll get the job done, but it's going to be a kind of a messy approach and a lot of little band-aid fixes and things like that'll get it there. We'd rather always just find those smarter ways. Like it might take a bit more time to do it the right way the first time, but when next time we need to implement this or do this, we'll have a better process to get started from and make it better going forward.
And you're not painting a ceiling on the Sistine Chapel. You don't have like one of those long projects going on, right?
No, okay. Nothing like that.
Well, so we're kind of almost wrapping up here, but I would like to touch on kind of one thing that I get asked about just in a lot of careers, but like, what advice would you give to kids who want to get started here? We talk about Regina, Saskatchewan, for a lot of people who don't know. A lot of the incentives for film industries and film companies here have been axed. We don't have a lot of support for a lot of creative endeavors. But is that kind of like something that should stop people, or how can you work with that?
I mean, I can't speak specifically to students in Saskatchewan and give them a recommendation about what they should do or where they should go, but I can speak to just people anywhere in the world, kids who have an interest in wanting to work in the film industry, to work in television, to work in media, digital media, in this type of world, maybe even in video games, that type of thing. And I think that the most important thing is that you need to be very, very patient, and you need to be very, very humble, because it's one of those career paths which is, there's other careers like it, but it's not the most normal one, in the sense that you should go to school and you should learn about the craft that you want and take that and do the school approach in order to get started in it, whether that's college or university or maybe traveling somewhere else to do it. But the thing about this is that you leave school and you're not going to jump into anything more than a grunt, terrible job, no matter what. And you will be in that grunt, terrible job for a long time. And what's going to see you get through that is making sure that you don't establish an ego, that you stay humble, that that, there's a ladder that needs to be climbed, and that ladder is going to take a long time, no matter what. You just got to bust your ass, work hard, and prove it to the people around you. Because it's a wonderful career to get into with a lot of opportunity and a lot of growth potential, but it's a career that takes time to get into. It's not learn something for 2 years and now jump in and now you're, a production manager or something. It is do your 2, 3, 4 years of school and then go work for 10 years. And then you'll start seeing things come from it. But I mean, if this is what you're interested in, if this is what you love doing anyways, well, it's not even a job. You're just having fun, and it's a treat every single day to be doing it. And I think that if you can end up with that as your career, being, once you end up getting into your 30s and older, then I think that you're winning. You're definitely doing great.
That's awesome advice. Yeah. Like, thank you, Paul. That was, you can really, like, if you speak like that, where it's coming from the heart and it's coming from experience, and it's also coming out of like a love for the industry, that you can tell just when you're saying that. And I hope that, maybe some people will listen to that and be able to kind of heed that advice.
Awesome, man. So we go to part 2 where I ask you all the questions now?
Oh God, maybe I got to stop recording and start that up again too. I definitely have to have Mike on at some point. Too. Well, because I asked Mike too, because I know him a little better, and he's like, no, talk to Paul. Paul's the guy, and I'm like, okay, I'll talk to Paul. I like Paul.
That's too. What he says all the time. He says that about everything. It's like, no, just talk to Paul. Paul will do it.
But before we go, I'd like you to just kind of plug your stuff, talk about what you're doing, talk about where people can find you and the projects you've worked on or have coming up.
Sure. I mean, our work spreads all across pretty much everything, but geez, if you're looking for stuff that we produced or that we're constantly on top of, you can check things like, I don't know, bubbly sparkling waters Instagram feed. Pretty much everything on there is work that we're putting through. We put our hand in so many different things. We've got our, a dozen different projects on the go at any given time. There's so many different pieces. But I mean, the best place to see and find more about Gloo is just go to our website, gloostudios.com. Check it out, see what kind of stuff is on there. And reach out if you want to chat. I love shooting the shit. So
well, thanks for shooting the shit with me today, man. I appreciate it. And we'll get you on next time and you can, toss me a couple of questions too.
There we go. That sounds like a good idea.
Okay. Thanks again for coming on, Paul.
Right on, Shay.